Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome in. If you're returning, I'm so glad to have you. Let's talk about death and nursing. Let's talk about how it affects you as a nurse. I want to revisit this topic because of an experience that I thought about recently. So if you like what you see here, then I ask that you like, subscribe, and follow for more. If you think it'll help somebody, then absolutely share it. And I love reading your comments and do read them all and respond as I am able. Let's talk about death. When we work in healthcare, death affects us, right? We lose a patient, it affects us. I think the reason I want to bring this up is because in hospice, I think we sometimes forget that death is affecting the workers, right? So when we are taking care of people that are dying, we do it every day in hospice. I think it's not that we become callous or cold or that it doesn't hurt our hearts or affect us. I've seen many nurses cry in our IDG meetings and take those times to reminisce about the patients that they've developed a connection with. I would also like to say before I go any further that anything that I say here is strictly my opinion, my experience. It does not replace the advice of an MD, and take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't, as the psychics say. Sometimes people who don't deal with deaths regularly in a hospice setting, for example, people that work in the community, people that are not medical, a death will affect them very deeply. And as hospice nurses, we deal with the death and we go on to the next patient. Maybe even as nurses in general, when you work in a profession where, or in a side of the profession where there's a lot of death, you know, long-term care has a lot of deaths. Sometimes ICUs experience a lot of deaths. I know that's where a lot of GIP patients are, where they're getting extubated and they're dying. I think it's not, like I said, that we become cold or callous to those things that are happening, but when you deal with the death and then you have to go to the next patient and take care of them, and you have to take care of the other patients, you don't really get time to pause as a hospice nurse, right? If you deal with death a lot, you don't really get time to pause and reflect and feel that death. But the reality is that it's affecting you, right? So what are you doing to renew yourself and to cope with those feelings? I guess that's a big question in my mind. When we lose a patient, when we are taking on the emotions of others, nurses are very empathetic by nature, I think. Generally, I think nurses are very empathetic and we feel the feelings that are happening all around us all the time. We feel the feelings of the family who just lost their loved one. We feel the feelings of the loss, but we don't always address the feeling of those feelings. And one of the questions that we ask our nurses whenever we're hiring new nurses, for example, is what do you do to renew yourself? How do you cope with all of this immense loss? How do you cope with your stress, right? As hospice nurses, what do we do to honor those feelings for ourselves? We are expected to just push those feelings down and move on to the next patient and do what they need us to do. And I heard a nurse say that and I realized that that nurse is one of the most sensitive nurses I know. I've seen that nurse cry. I've seen that nurse take it to heart when somebody dies. But it made me realize how heavy it can be to deal with death every day for a person. It isn't that that nurse doesn't feel those things. It's that that nurse has had to feel those things and keep on keeping on, right? And that is the hardest part of being a nurse and dealing with death every day. People always say to us as hospice nurses, I couldn't do what you do. I don't know how you do it. As if we don't feel the immense loss that's happening around us. But we do. We do feel it. We do absorb it. We do take it in on ourselves, and it can become overwhelming sometimes. So it's really important that you have a place to reset, rewind, renew, refresh, and acknowledge those feelings, right? Acknowledge those losses that you feel. Because we're people too. We have feelings too. And it's really important to take a minute and reflect on what it is that you're feeling about those losses and those things that are happening. I know the first death I had was a lot harder than the last death that I've experienced lately. But I will tell you that the death of my brother made death feel different to me again. When my brother died in December, and I happened to be the family member on the side of the bed instead of the nurse on the side of the bed, I remembered what it felt like to lose someone you love, right? And so it again made it challenging for me to go to a death visit and to not feel those emotions. You know, as nurses, a lot of times, because it's not about us when a patient dies, we have to push those emotions down and be there for the family. We have to be strong and be the person making decisions, executing the decisions that have already previously been made. Let's be real. So we are the ones calling the funeral home. We are the ones calling the coroner. We are the ones calling the medical examiner, whatever that may be. The nurse is the person facilitating that in hospice. And a lot of times in ICU or in a nursing home, I know the nurses make those calls. Nurses often pronounce and report to the doctor. A nurse listens to the heart, checks the pulses, checks for those vital signs that are there, and then we call a time of death in hospice. And the thing that happens is the family has called us and said, hey, I think mom or dad has died. But when we get there and we're doing our thing, listening for the amount of time that we have to listen to, and it feels like it's forever sometimes, the family realizes that it's true when we say, yes, he's gone, yes, she's gone. And that is when it's almost like a collective letting out of the breath in the home with the family. It's like that. And it feels awful to give that kind of news as a nurse. It's not without feeling. We feel awful too. And so I think it's really important that you find a way to decompress, de-stress, and renew your own spirit and your own soul, and find something that you love to do. Do you like to write? Do you like to listen to music? Do you do yoga? Do you do meditation? Do you go to church? Do you hang out with your friends? What is it that makes you be able to continue to do the job you do and to give the love that you give as a hospice nurse? As a nurse, what is it that helps you to fill your cup again so that you can give more? Because sometimes it can feel so empty. Sometimes our cups are drained. Sometimes it feels so heavy being a nurse, right? And it's really important that you fill your cup and you think of yourself too. I think nurses don't think of ourselves as much as we should, but take the time to do something that you love. Take the time to spend some time with yourself, recharge, regenerate, and renew. That is what my advice is to you today, unsolicited as usual. And tell me about your methods of keeping yourself together as a nurse. I'd love to hear about it more in the comments. And if you like it, then please like, subscribe, and follow. And if you think it'll help somebody, absolutely share. I thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.